All right, so we start with multiple layers. Basically, the first thing you're going to want to do that's super important is set up a tripod when you're doing different images overlaid like this. It's very important to use a tripod. So basically what I'm doing is I take a picture of the background that I'm using on a tripod and then put myself in front of it. So you have a seamless background to work with. And here I am just kind of going in and using masks in the layers tool to blend and go from there, and just kind of seamlessly put these three images together. So the key here is to just seamlessly blend. Obviously my head here is going to be cut off, so I'm just kind of figuring out how I plan on doing that. Just going in, trial and error. There's my head. So I took 3 different images and kind of put these together. So I kind of, here I'm just kind of overlaying and cutting out the head. One of the key things is just blending. It's a lot of trial and error, getting the right brush, what size works, the opacity, the hardness, and the softness of the edges, and just kind of messing around until you find something that works. Here I wanted my head to sit in the cup of my hand. So I'm going in and just kind of outlining myself to give me a better idea of how that will look. Honestly, a lot of times at the very beginning, you think it's going to turn out horribly. I remember doing this here and thinking to myself like, oh God, am I going to be able to pull this off? So also another thing I wanted is this dress to be very billowing, and I wanted it to look exceptionally long. So I used the liquify tool to shape it how I'd like. You can use the liquify tool on your body if you so choose. That is your prerogative. I don't do that, so or I try not to. But I use it for dresses. I use it for levitation shots. It just kind of helps elongate if needed. So here, since I reshaped, I'm going to have to reblend a little bit on the dress. It's a lot of just clicking. One thing that is very useful is if you look in your bottom right corner, the layers tool, or the layers box you have there, on the left of every layer there's a little eyeball, and that will allow you to see, to like hide a layer and show a layer but not actually delete. Yeah, so here I am. I took a picture with my hair pulled away so I could kind of get a better picture of my neck. And here I am just taking my head off and blending that neck into the piece that I have going so far. I'll be honest, I already recorded a voiceover and then it didn't save. So I'm really hoping at the end of this video this saves when I'm done talking, because I talked for a while and then it didn't save. So here I'm using my back, like as the back of my neck. I clone stamped my back onto the back neck, and then I use the the stamp tool to kind of blend the shadows there. Or the patch tool, sorry, it's called the patch tool. It's in your left toolbar. I'm then cleaning up my neck a little bit, giving it some nice, giving myself some nice posture. There we go. Here's what we have so far. So now it's just a little bit of cleaning up the neck. One of the key things when you're doing a piece like this is your shading. Your shading is extremely important. I think I'm paused here trying to figure out what I'm going to do next. Naturally, I go for the socket. Cool, great. So I took that out. I took that out by just, again, doing the clone stamp tool. It's important. Here I am cleaning up the arm a little bit. One thing to get these overlaid images and like all of these shots together to work, it's really important to pay attention to your shadows. Obviously right now it does not look like I'm holding my head just because, I'm cleaning up my dress here, but in this picture right now it does not look like I'm holding my head. So obviously I'm going to have to go in and get the shading right on the palm of my hand, which I think I do next. And there we go. Okay, cool. So here I am just kind of adding some shadows there. I didn't like the black color, so I sampled from the shadow on my chin, which was a brown color. And I used the blending tools, which are in your layers. I clicked multiply, which is pretty good for blending, and change the opacity a little bit. Here I'm going in and cutting out some of my skin from the picture of my head. Hair is a pain in the butt to edit, honestly. The masking tool is super important there, which you can find in properties. It's select and mask. You can go in and select the hair individually, which is nice. And then I did notice while I was working, like when I zoomed out, I'm like, oh, realistically, if I did have my hair floating down, it wouldn't be pulled away to the right. It'd be kind of billowing underneath my head. So I liquefied and shaped it a little bit. What to talk about in the meantime? Let's see. These are my favorite things to do. I love these. So I guess I'll talk about this basically the thought process behind this image. I don't know about you. While I think the quarantine is extremely important, doesn't mean I have to like it, but I do think it's important. I'm going insane. So kind of the image that popped into my head was having a conversation with myself, or kind of trying to get out of my own head. And to do that, I just kind of imagined taking my head off of my body, to kind of detach myself. So that kind of inspired this picture. A lot of Photoshop is honestly just trial and error, figuring out what works. As you can see here, I started working and realized that I didn't like the head being so far forward, so I pulled it back because realistically I wanted the chin of my head to sit in the palm of my hand. So I created a new layer to kind of bring that thumb on top of my head. You don't have to do it like that. If you wanted to end up removing some of the mask on the actual head layer itself, that would work, but I personally like layering differently. It's really just whatever your preference is. That's kind of the nice thing about Photoshop is there is a billion ways to do one specific thing. You can do it multiple ways. Also, keyboard shortcuts are cool. I'm really bad at keyboard shortcuts. I need to get better, but learning. Yeah, so here I'm just kind of blending the hair a little bit. This is kind of fun to see it all sped up. Sped up? Yeah, sped up. Yep, removing the bags, realistically. I haven't been sleeping well, I say as I'm recording this voiceover at 3:30 in the morning. Cleaning, I don't know what that was, to be honest. I feel like I was frowning, but I really wasn't. Removing my blemishes, because it's my life. Leave me alone, don't judge me. Photoshop is such a cool program. I'm biased, but it's a very cool program. I started working in Photoshop when I was 16. This girl asked for Christmas for Photoshop. My mom was like, "What do you want from Santa?" And I was like, "Mom, I want Santa to get me Photoshop." Not a new cell phone, not something that a 16-year-old girl would usually want. Photoshop, because I was a nerd. So here, like I said, it's a lot of trial and error. I really wasn't sure how I was going to get the hair to blend correctly, so I went in to kind of figure that out. Here, I'm trying to lighten the area around the hair to kind of give it more contrast, so the mask tool could pick it up better. The mask tool works better when there's contrast between two things in terms of cutting things out. So as you can see here, that little highlight where my mouse is, I decided that that would be an easier spot to cut the hair than that chunk beneath it. So I decided to lighten it a little bit to give it more contrast, to help cut it out, if that makes sense. So you can see the nice contrast there. It did help a little bit, but you know, nothing is perfect, so it only helped a little. As you can see here, I'm erasing the parts I don't want in the mask, cleaning up here and there. Whew, forgive me, I'm yawning. Oh my gosh, guys, I'm getting tired. This is exciting. I don't actively I'm really terrible at sleeping, especially when I get an idea like this. I had this idea earlier today, and I was so excited to get an idea just because I have had a really hard time feeling motivated during quarantine, that as soon as I had this idea, I knew I had to get it out immediately. So here we are. When it comes to these type of shots, one of the most important things you can do is use a tripod. I don't know if you can tell when I'm flip-flopping between these images, the background does not move. The first time I ever did an image like this where I needed to use multiple images to sync them together, I did not use a tripod, and that was the biggest mistake, because nothing lined up. Like the background image, you think you're standing in the same spot each time, but there's no way. So a tripod just kind of ensures that those lines will line up. And as you can tell here, I am doing trial and error with the different brushes that Photoshop has, because I discover new brushes every time I'm in photo. I do not know all of the tools. I'm sure there's a better way to do this, and if there is, feel free to comment it. Yeah, there is an error there, also there, but I was just trying to figure out the best way to blend the pieces of hair at the bottom of my severed head. We are 13 minutes in, ladies and gents. I'm very appreciative of you listening to my rambling. Hopefully you're getting something out of this. And even if you're not, it's fun to watch time lapses, in my opinion, personally. So here I'm just zooming in, blending. I probably overanalyze the blending, but I'm kind of a perfectionist when it comes to these type of files. For example, this file took me 2 hours to make. That kind of gives you a good idea of how long editing can take. Now, not every image takes that long, but so here I kind of got done and I realized that my head needed a shadow, realistically. So I'm just going in and cleaning up the bits and pieces of the image that I don't need, just because, like I said, I started with a blank picture of the background, so I don't need all of that extra background. I selected the same shade that the other shadow was and just kind of added a little. Makes it more realistic because shadows are important. You never look at an image and be like, that's stupid. But if it has a shadow, you're more likely to think it's real, as long as the shadows all line up and are correct. Gosh, I clean up my Photoshop documents better than I clean my own house. Although, don't judge me for those layers. I did not label these layers because I'm the only one working in these documents. Usually when I know other people might be poking and prodded around my Photoshop documents, I tend to label, but didn't see the point because it was just me, myself, and I. So you can see it's starting to come together a little bit. Still obviously some blending issues, some stuff I just needed to clean up. I definitely recommend zooming into your document when you're working and really looking at all of the spots that where the shadows are supposed to be. Make sure that all of your overlaid images line up. So like obviously the neck of my body is different in a different picture than the rest of my body, so it's really important to make sure that it's seamless. That is what creates the illusion, because I'm a magician. I really need to go to bed, I'm sure. So yeah, it's starting to come together. I could poke and prod at these pieces, for the next 2 hours probably. I ended up being really content with how it turned out, but, you're your own worst critic, so I'm over here like nitpicking already. Just kind of adjusting the background. Look at that clean line. And there it is. One of my pet peeves is using the clone stamp and not being aware of duplicating pixels. So like for example, that right there, you can see that the clone stamp, I just kept cloning the same spot and it made that pattern. It's not something that most eyes will see, but for some reason it just really bothers me. So I'm cleaning it up a little bit. I just don't like, I think one of the biggest things you can see in a fake document is when like the clone stamp has been used 6 times in a row and you can see it. There we go. It's coming together. Just cleaning it up. I think next I saved the best for last. Trying to figure out how to make that neck realistic. Perfect. So I cleaned it up a little bit, and then I really wanted it to look circular, kind of like a biology diagram where you cut a blood vessel and you can see like the tube. That's what I just imagined it looking like. So here I am cleaning it up, blending that shadow a little bit more using the clone stamp. And so I duplicated the neck and I brought it behind the top layer and kind of brought it out so it created a circle. And then I darkened that back layer because realistically, when you're looking at a cone, the back piece would more than likely be the darker part. And then I took the front side and curled it the opposite way, so it started to make that oval. The key to liquefying is going bit by bit. Don't just get all crazy up in there and start just liquefying everything. It's important to do it baby steps to make it more realistic. So you can see I'm kind of cleaning it up there. I wonder how many times I've said cleaning. And then you see it and you're like, what? That's so creepy. I darkened the inside to give it more of the illusion. Zoomed out and you're like, what? Her head's chopped off. I was so excited when I zoomed out. I was like, what? This is so cool. Yeah, just evening out those shading right there. Oh, I love how this turned out. I'm so excited. And there you have it. So, yeah, that's my head. And then I really thought that this dress needed to be purple because the hair is purple in this image. So I just used the hue, the adjustments layer. It's next to the adjustments panel, which is next to the properties panel on your right side. You can go over and select, I'm just cleaning up my layers. You can mess around with it. I wanted it to be kind of a muted purple. So I usually mess around with color balance or the hues, saturation, vibrance, all that fun stuff until I come up with a color that I like. Yeah, look at that. Dark purple. And then you invert, which you can use by Command I. or control if you're one of those Mac or PCs people. I don't know how you work on a PC. And then I'm just kind of cleaning it up and using the mask tool to kind of determine where I want that hue change to be. Ugh, of course it's late and all I want is pizza. I just want a cheesy pepperoni pizza. But I don't want to spend money. Because I'm alone and eating a large pizza by myself right now is frowned upon. So yep, just cleaning up layers here and there, just masking them. I don't know, I get so much joy out of like creating a very clean blended layer like this. Like I was like so happy changing the color, zooming out and being like, oh, it looks so nice. And then I added a texture to this document. I'm not going to show you guys, you can see the final product, but how I did that was I just dropped an image, like a black and white textured image into the document, and I mixed the blending. I mixed the blend. I used the blending tool to mix it and come up with a texture that I liked. So, oh, and I also made the hair a little bit more purple because why not? And there you have it, guys. Thank you so much for watching or staying this long, and there's the final product.